Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. TGIM.
Thank God it's Monday. I'm Noah.
And I'm Ashley.
And we are here to host the Monday morning show for you. So we've got lots of fun stuff going on this week, and we are excited to share it with you. So
We are.
what is today?
Well, today is Quirky Country Music Song Day.
Quirky Country Music Song Day. That's a mouthful.
It is, and I only bring it up because I know that Noah here loves country music.
I do love country music.
And so I wondered if she had ever heard of these quirky country music songs.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Okay, so have you ever heard of the classic Dirty Old Egg-Sucking Dog?
Dirty Old Egg-Sucking Dog. I wish I had.
It's by Johnny Cash, so it's by a big name, yeah.
Okay.
How about Sick 'em on a Chicken?
Sick 'em on a Chicken?
Mm-hmm.
That's a real song?
By the Zac Brown Band.
Wow.
Yeah.
Weird.
You Can't Roller Skate in a Buffalo Herd.
I feel like I should have heard that since I played
You were
roller
a roller
derby.
skater, yeah. My uncle used to love me, but she died.
What? No, I haven't heard that one either.
Okay, here's another. How about the Peanut Butter Conspiracy?
That one actually sounds vaguely familiar.
To Jimmy Buffett. So
but
you
I don't know that I could sing it to you.
I Still Like Bologna.
I still like bologna. No, not that one either.
All right, what about Beer for My Horses?
I have heard Beer for My Horses.
All right,
yes.
I figured we'd end with something
Yes.
you'd heard
Have
of.
you ever heard You're the Reason Our Children Are Ugly?
No.
That is a country music song.
Perfect,
and it's
that's not on my
quite
list.
entertaining.
That's fun.
Yeah, there are lots of weirdly named country music songs.
Well, they've got such stories to tell that they name their songs funny, so I thought it'd be a little...
I love that.
Yeah.
Country music. Fun.
But now on to the Freedom Village news of the week.
The normal things.
Yes.
We don't have much going on today. The biggest thing today is the Monday morning show.
The most
which,
important
you
thing
know,
today.
Every week is the Monday morning show. But tomorrow we have our monthly This Is Your Life social. So 3 o'clock in the auditorium, we'll be introducing some new Freedom Village friends and neighbors, and having a social and just a good hour to get to know your neighbors a little bit better and enjoy some food and drink. So
And
coming
if you
up.
want to be festive, what should you wear?
If you want to be festive, you should wear green, which we know St. Patrick's Day was a couple of weeks ago, but it's festive all month long. So wear green and join us in the auditorium.
Awesome. That sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Wednesday afternoon, we've got our classic Wednesday musical reminiscing. Who's playing this week?
I think it will be Janice, but I'm not totally sure.
Okay.
So I think Janice will be playing on the 29th.
Well, no matter who plays, it'll be a good time.
Yes, it always is. And then our Thursday night program is going to be Kyle Shippa, who has been here a few times. He shares his Where in Michigan Are We travelogues.
Fun.
So he shows pictures of different places, and you have to guess what city you're in based on
that's
some
fun.
key facts, which is really
Very
fun.
fun.
So he'll be here again, and we should have a good time, 7:15 in the auditorium.
Nice.
Yeah.
Friday evening, there's a special program at Hope, the Great Performance Series. This time is Camille Thurman and the Daryl Green Quartet. And the NPR calls Camille a rare jazz double threat because she's a vocalist and tenor sax player.
Oh, cool.
And she'll be joined by the Daryl Green Quartet. So it should be a good time. If you're interested in going, sign up on Touchtown for the bus and then contact Hope College Ticket Office to get tickets for yourself.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of a rare combo, vocals and tenor sax. How interesting.
Yeah, I
wonder-
caught a little clip of her and she's really, really good.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah, it would be a good show.
Yeah, I love that.
Another note for everyone, this is the last week to check out the Resident Art Show up in the auditorium. So that'll be taken down this coming weekend. So make sure you get up there if you haven't yet and
Check out all the
take a
architecture.
look around. Yeah, all the architecture, good things.
What will our next art show be?
I'm thinking something springy, some flowers perhaps.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Spring, we love that.
Yeah,
cool.
so keep an eye on your item updates and the Monday Morning Show for more information on a new one.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great.
And so next, we want to share a really cool interview
Yes,
that we have
do.
with Jim Neville. Everyone knows Jim Neville, and if
Everybody
you don't,
knows
you're going to get to
Jim.
know a lot more about him right now.
Yes.
And he's being interviewed by the wonderful Joe Kuiper, who does such a great job getting to know him and get information out of him.
She's a really great interviewer. She just does a really nice job.
Yes.
So,
It's time to take a look at that.
let's do it.
Hi, everybody. Well, I think everybody's watching anyway. I'm Joe Kuiper, and this is Jim Neville, and we're going to have a little conversation this morning. Hope you like joining in. Well, yes, you can't, but you can listen and you can talk to us later, see if you agree with everything we said or you have any additions. Noah's behind the camera there, so she's going to tell us, no, we can't do that. Oh, hi, Jim. How are you?
Hello, Joe. I'm fine this morning.
That's
good to see you.
Oh, yes, it is morning.
You're up
isn't
and
it?
at 'em again. I'm so glad.
Yes, I am. I'm well
Good.
again, and I'm working at it, and I didn't want to not do this because we want to keep on a schedule to do this. So this is good, and I'm glad you're here too.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, well, let's see. Where shall we start? I don't know. We know you mostly from the pulpit, I guess, but not all from the pulpit. But let me go way back and say, was music always in your field? I'm talking about music now. Was that always in the background of your mind?
Music was always in my background because my mother was a music teacher and taught voice after she graduated from college in Berea, Kentucky, at Berea College.
I didn't know that, in Berea.
Berea, yes.
Oh, I've been there. Yeah.
And then she taught in Richmond, a state teachers college for a while before she got married. But she was a soprano soloist and had one of the most glorious soprano voices you could ever imagine.
Really?
Sang the Messiah and was in great demand over all the years, all through college and beyond. And she sang professionally for quite a while. And her brother was a professional tenor in Chicago for many years. So music was always a part of my life. And she'd been in the Women's Glee Club at Hope. My dad sang in a choir, and although he didn't sing professionally at all, but Mother had done that for a long time.
Did your mother give you lessons?
My mother gave me voice lessons and piano lessons, and I was taking baritone horn at the same time, and so the piano lessons sort of got waylaid, for which I'm unhappy about.
Oh, didn't you miss those recitals?
Those recitals were terrible. I can remember the last recital I went to, and it was deadly, and I don't want to do that again. Military Polonaise by Chopin is what I played, and I can even be da 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 da.
Oh yes, da 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 bump. That goes in there.
So anyway, music was very important to me, and I sang in choirs and played in the orchestra in grade school, high school, and until I got to college. Then I was in the chapel choir, and I was in the orchestra for a while at Hope, but that didn't last very long. So then I struggled whether, when I was going to college, whether I should go into music and keep that professionally, or whether I should go.
And not only music, but probably some acting as well, some theater and some stage, right?
I loved theater from the time I was in high school, when I began doing theater in high school, all through all 4 years of high school, all 4 years of college. And so I've always said a good minister should have a little ham in him once in a while, because it makes a difference in the pulpit.
Did you catch that, folks? A little ham? It's okay.
Maybe some bacon too, but anyway.
But you do. People do react to that nicely. They look at you and they say, "Oh, he's human too. He can give me some humor."
Well, and I think that's important for people to see that, because it's easy to be put on a pedestal when you're in the ministry, and people hold you high up in an area where you really don't belong. It's like having a clerical collar on, but it could choke you too if you're not careful. And because people their expectations are higher than perhaps they should be, which makes ministry sometimes very, very difficult for people to understand that you are very much a human, and you act and respond as a human and are sinful like everybody else. But you're there with some special training to do what you can to provide leadership and love to people who are listening.
I think that approach was more prevalent years back than what it is now, where the dominie, the minister, was held very high, and you didn't counteract anything he said. And it's different now a little bit, don't you think?
Well, part of that was because years ago the minister was one of the educated ones in the churches.
That's true.
And so people looked to the minister or the clergy person because of that education, and that made a difference in how they were treated and looked at. I think sometimes that's why they may have been held in higher esteem than perhaps somebody who was the farmer in the farm, which shouldn't have been the case. but because I look at some of the laity that I've lived with and worked with over the years and discovered that they're far more educated than I am and have a much better sense of what life is all about than I've ever experienced.
Well, but okay, so that's a big part of preaching is not only what you do on Sunday morning, or in our case at Vespers here, but a lot of it is counseling as well. Special training and counseling, or do you develop that as you go along?
I laugh because my first day after being ordained, in my first congregation, there was a knock at the door the next morning, and it was a woman who said, "I need help. My daughter is being beat up by my son-in-law. What can you do?" I had had no idea what to do. We had had no training like that in seminary at all. You're sort of thrown out to the wolves. Now, granted, I'd served congregations during seminary. You know, you as a student minister, I was out 2 years doing that in different congregations. But that, to be hit with that the first morning after ordination, and then have to go and deal with this and figure out how to handle this with somebody, that was very foreign to me because I did not grow up in a situation where I'd seen any of that. And yet, what do? You go and you deal with whatever the need is and do it as well as you can and try to be understanding and listen, which you have to do. You learn how to listen very carefully. And sometimes advice doesn't work, but you do the best you can. And it's in God's hands. You say, I think I drove up to their house and probably prayed all the way. What am I going to say? What's going to happen here, God? I can't do it myself. It's your hands. So we were not given a lot of training in those kinds of things in those days. And when I started ministry, which is now, 1959, when I was ordained, there were very few counseling centers around, and they just were beginning to come into play in those early years. And I was in a rural community outside of Albany, New York, and by the time we left after 7 years, there was a counseling center being established at the hospital in Albany Medical Center.
So the times are changing in that regard. There's a lot more emphasis on counseling.
Oh, much more, and you spend an inordinate amount of time dealing with people who have issues, and you don't know what's going to walk in the door when the door opens in your office, and or you see somebody. As a minister, you see an awful lot and know an awful lot about a lot of people that you wish you didn't, because you can look out in a congregation and you know more than anybody else knows about some of them. Although that's not always true. I had some terrible situations in my first congregation. And my dad had been minister of that church 30 years before, and when I would tell him these stories, he said, "Never heard of anything like that." And I said, "No, they wouldn't tell you then." But 30 years later, the minister could be in on that, and he was the problem solver. Again, and you can't be the problem solver all the time.
Have you ever, while you're in the middle of a service, an emergency came up? I can tell you a story from my background when they suddenly said, "Oh, the church is on fire, everybody out." And so the organist immediately played "Onward Christian Soldiers," and we all marched out. Turned out, you can guess, somebody left a cigar in his coat pocket, and it all started to burn up in the smoke alarms and all of that. Had anything exciting like that in your experience?
Well, mine is not exciting, mine is sad, because on Thanksgiving, my first Thanksgiving in the church, the third congregation that I served, was a huge congregation, and we had 5 handbell choirs, and the adult handbell choir was playing at the 11 o'clock service on Thanksgiving at 2 services. And as the service was ending, there was this big crash, and one of the men who was handbell player dropped dead on the spot. But the bells were playing in the balcony, and so had to call the ambulance. We'd stop the service, and just got everybody out another door so the ambulance could get in, and he was gone by the time he hit the floor, and so that, and the interesting thing was he was the one who had given the original set of handbells to the church. So he was well respected and well known, and that was the first funeral I had when I went to that congregation. It was huge.
I hope the handbells played for him.
They did.
Good.
They did.
I hope they did.
They did. Yeah. So I mean, I think that was a sad time. There have been some other situations too over the years, of course, but no fires.
No fires. What's it like here to have this congregation, and I call this a congregation here at Freedom Village. I know you do Vespers on Sunday afternoon, and when it doesn't happen, during COVID, that was really a sad time, and we really needed that. But do you look at the people here who come as your congregation then?
I do, because Vespers has become, for so many people, their church, because they are unable to get out. So they come and they expect to be encouraged, they expect to be part of a group of people who care about each other and listen to each other, and being able to bring in clergy from the outside. Each week it's a different person, so it's important. And I look at this as my congregation. I'm still a member of another congregation in town, and I do calling for them. But every Sunday afternoon is something very, very special to be part of this group here at Freedom Village, who come to worship and sing and pray together.
And John Bryson was just talking with us previously, and he was such a big part of that, the music that he plays in the organ and in the piano. So we appreciate all he does, but you also get special music. Do you do that too? For if there's a singer, or who gets that?
The person who's in charge of the months is responsible for getting the visiting clergy and the music and anything, and a liturgist. It's becoming a little more difficult because there are just 2 or 3 of us who are now planning all the Vesper services. So I can put out a help wanted ad here for anybody who would like to join the Vesper committee and take a month. That would be wonderful. We'd appreciate it.
Okay, did you hear that, folks? You feel combined or convicted to do that, you just better see Jim and talk it over with him. He'll be happy to give you some information about that. There are a lot of people here I know that would like to serve, and sometimes we don't know how to serve. And this is a good way that we could serve.
And certainly if anybody would like to be a liturgist or help out in that way, we would be open to inviting them to do that as well, and feel comfortable doing that. It'd be wonderful.
What else did we talk about? We were going to talk about anything else. I don't know.
You asked me if I had any stories, and because Joe had asked me, because I have a tendency to tell stories in my sermons, and I remember once saying that I could probably preach the same sermon over and over again if I changed the stories, because people remember the stories when they don't remember anything else. And over the years, I sometimes think that children's messages, which I used I had to preach every Sunday, were more effective sometimes than the adult sermons, because they're simple and people remember the stories. And to me, it's a story, and if it can be personal, obviously that's much more important. But you read stories, you read experiences people have, and those make a difference. How they're used in understanding what you're trying to get across biblically, theologically. If a story can bring that out in a very personal way, that is something you go home with and say, well, I can remember that, and may not remember exactly what else was said, but that does make a difference. And I remember I used a story one time when I was young, very young, and I got spanked many times by my dad. And those were the days when that was acceptable, not so much anymore. But the last time he did it, I have no idea what I did, but he said to me, I want you to spank me. Oh. And I said, I can't do that. He said, I want you to spank me because I want you to know how hard it is for me to punish you in that way because I love you so much. And I was telling that story in a sermon one Sunday, and somebody came up to me who had some psychiatric background and said, that's the worst advice you could ever have had, don't ever do that again. But it worked. I never was punished again like that.
Well, you never know. You preach a sermon, you don't know what kind of reaction you're going to get.
You sure don't.
No.
And you find out things you think you said, and people will say, "Oh, I appreciated what you said," and I thought I never said that.
I think that's true. We do hear what we want to hear, and we interpret it, and they say, "Oh, that's right, because it's not down in print, and but what we heard, our perceptions are different.
Perceptions are very different, and I think because when you're listening, you have a tendency to go off on this tangent one way or another, and that may lead you to think of something that was said that really wasn't, but it's all within the same confines of what had been spoken about that day.
This goes back to your family. You've got 3 sons,
We have 3 sons
and they all sing,
and a daughter, and they all sing.
and the daughter sings.
Hmm.
And is there a tradition in your family on Christmas Eve that they all participate in?
There is.
What is that?
Years ago, I started singing "O Holy Night," and I didn't do it in my first congregation. I did it in the second congregation on Christmas Eve. We closed the service on Christmas Eve with a prayer, and then the darkness, and "O Holy Night," and then "Joy to the World." And so our daughter Kay sings it in her church, and her son sings it in their church. They have 5 services at their church on Christmas Eve, and so grandson Jeff does 1, Kay does 2, and one's just a kid's service. They don't do it. Ken has been singing it for years in the churches he's been in here, and Jeff is the minister in the Virgin Islands, and he always ends his Christmas Eve service with "O Holy Night." So it's become a tradition in the family.
And now with Zoom, you can hear them all, can't you?
We can hear them all,
You
yes.
can-
And we did
and
this
with
year.
a different time change.
A different time change.
can
We
hear each
watched
one.
this year because we couldn't get out to Christmas Eve
Yeah.
because of the weather.
What a wonderful tie.
So there are advantages of Zoom and
Yes,
YouTube and a few other things.
There are. very
But
much.
it's been very meaningful, and it's interesting because, and not that I'm pushing myself, but over the years, people who have been in my churches, that's the one thing, if nothing else, they remember that. And I'll get notes or letters or around Christmas letters saying the best thing about Christmas Eve was "O Holy Night."
You see how much music plays in our lives that we don't even realize it's just there.
Yeah.
It's really there.
It's important because music is a universal language, and it means so much to so many people in different ways.
I'm glad you still sing, and I'm glad you still put a part of that in the services. That's wonderful. Speaking of that, I heard a story that you had an uncle who got into broadcasting or advertising.
My uncle, my mother's brother, was a professional singer in Chicago and sang in WLS in Chicago, and he was part of a quartet called the Northerners. And for those of us who are old enough, will remember some of the soap operas that were on radio, and one was Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy.
Yes.
And Jack Armstrong, every day you heard that 50-minute program, it started with a song. "Have you tried Wheaties, the best breakfast food in the land?" Well, that was Uncle Paul. And
That was your
That was my
uncle?
Uncle Paul, yes. So for many years he got residuals from
Wheaties?
Wheaties, yeah. We're singing about Wheaties.
Did he convince you it's Wheaties every morning?
No.
No.
Barb's father ate Wheaties every morning, but I didn't because I didn't like them. They got too soggy.
Well, there you have it, folks. We covered the rainbow.
We've
well,
covered the gamut of
We
everything
went the
from-
whole thing. Yeah, now we're talking about Wheaties. So if you have a Wheaties for breakfast, you can think about that. But you can think about a lot of the other things that we talked about. And I want to thank you so much, Jim, for taking this time. It's been a delight. And I hope you all have enjoyed it, too. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Thanks, Joe. Goodbye, everybody.
It's Monday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for Nonsense. Nonsense with Noah. Let's hit the halls.
Question for you. It is, what was Walt Disney afraid of? Oh.
Afraid the mouse would die?
He was afraid of mice.
Oh God, no.
It's an easy one.
Okay.
It's really easy, I promise. It is, what was Walt Disney afraid of?
Got nothing.
Mice.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What was Walt Disney afraid of?
Mascots?
He was afraid of mice. Some
Ah,
sort of,
wow.
yes. What was Walt Disney afraid of?
Failure, probably.
Failure?
Doing something wrong, because everything he did seemed to turn into gold.
I like those. That's a better answer than what I have for you.
Oh,
My answer is mice.
mice. I didn't know that. Well, anyway, not now I know.
Now you know. What was Walt Disney afraid of? Best guess.
The only thing I can think of was being an orphan.
Oh. My answer is mice.
Oh no, because all of his children are orphans in his movies.
Oh, that makes sense. I like that. Huh. Well, that's all we've got for you this week on the Monday Morning Show. So that's Ashley,
That's Noah.
and we'll see you next week. Bye.